Hello everybody and welcome to a very special edition of Gamespot Presents Now Playing. We are down here in Santa Monica visiting Treyarch, the developer behind Call of Duty Black Ops, and we're here to check out a pretty hefty chunk of the game's online multiplayer. I'm joined by David Vonderhaar, the game design director, who's here to pretty much walk us through the experience and tell us how they approached the game and what the final version is going to be like once you guys finally get your hands on it very soon. David, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, man.
My pleasure. So, the Call of Duty series is obviously a franchise that people feel very strong about it. You have some very, very adoring fans out there. So when you approach a new game like this, I'm sure it's a tough balance to find between, adding new features that people are going to love and making sure not to take out the ones that people already love,
Yeah, it's actually a pretty challenging assignment, right? Because there are some things that people are very, very attached to. Mm-hmm. But on the same front, as a game designer, you have to keep pushing forward and you have to continue to innovate. So to balance those two things starts pretty early in pre-production phase.
Yeah.
And just to be really honest about it, there's some super, super brutal, dialogue about that, about trying to sort that out.
So we've actually got the game running right here. We've got our friend John from Activision who is playing for us. David, tell us what's happening. What's the map that we're looking at here? I know that Black Ops is sort of a globe-trotting story. You go all over the world. What's this location we're looking at here?
This is what we call Havana. It's obviously Havana, Cuba, mm-hmm. and it uses the Operation 40 faction versus the Tropas. So we're roaming the streets of Havana in what looks to be a domination game right now. And these guys are trying to cap all these flags, and you get points, of course, in domination when you're capping flags. And right now they're running behind schedule, but if they cap all three, they'll get points pretty quickly and can take this game.
All right. So domination, obviously one of the familiar modes for veterans of the Call of Duty series. Have you guys added any other new modes into the mix?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different things. So at the very high level, with the base core game modes that people are familiar with, like domination, we've added what we call the bare bones variation. So this is something that fans had asked for, and that we did. So you know the game is probably core, and then a lot of people also know the hardcore version of the game, which removes the HUD and makes the game deadlier. But there's also a bare bones variation of every game mode, or there could be. And what bare bones allows us to do is selectively figure out which kill streaks to either have in the game or take all the kill streaks out. But on top of that, we can also force people to use default classes, or we could say, hey, there's only going to be a level 3 kill streak and this is what it's going to be. And it lets us modify and change that when the game's actually in the retail world over time and as the needs of the fans change, and they do change.
Absolutely. Now, we should probably mention off the bat here that we're starting off on a fairly low level. I think we're at level 3, so we should get a good sense of some of the initial progression and unlockables that you get when you start the game, right?
Yeah, John's running with MP5K, which is one of the default weapons in the SMG class. Being only level 3, he's only got a couple of base classes and weapons available to him. And then, like in previous games, of course, as he ranks up, he'll start unlocking more features, mm-hmm. and he'll start unlocking more weapons.
Enemy spy plane above.
Now, as a designer of multiplayer games, I'd imagine one of the biggest challenges is making sure that there's that sense of reward for the really, really high-level players, but also making sure that the low-level guys, like what we're seeing here, are still able to be competitive in a match, right?
Yeah, it's really important that no absolutely new player can't have fun playing the game. So there's a lot of stuff that happens at very early levels. In a way, it's not necessarily intrinsically part of the design, but it's certainly discussed a lot, which is, at a very low level, what are going to be the default weapons? Because if you don't have a positive experience using a weapon very early on, you can get turned off right away. So this MP5K, for example, it's a pretty easy-to-use gun, and it's fairly representative of all the SMGs in the game, right? It's what we call a baseline gun. Mm-hmm. So SMGs are either sort of more deadly but less accurate, or less accurate but more deadly from this point. So that's pretty common thing to do in the early levels. So a guy like John here with an early gun can still have his fair share of fun.
All right. And the other players in the match, it looks like they're roughly the same level. It doesn't look like we're seeing anything too outlandish and high level in terms of what they're carrying around. that the case?
Yeah, John, could you hit your scoreboard for a second? Let's take a look here. Yeah, so these guys were ranging anywhere from 3 to 9. It looks like. Okay, thank you, John. So there's nothing. No one player in this match is going to be, have you outmatched simply by his level. But then, to be really honest about it. It doesn't really matter if you get ranked with the higher level player. The only thing that's really telling you is that guy's played the game longer than you, right? We don't really tune weapons to be something that gets better or worse over time. They just get different, right? You don't want to intrinsically create an environment where higher ranked players have advantages over lower ranked players, right? And we have the prestige system, if you're familiar with that from previous games, where you can actually give up your rank and start over for a little bit of prestige, icons and some other bonuses that we give you. So you could have a really high-ranked player who's played the game way more than you, who's a lower level than you because he's prestige, right? So yeah, we go out of our way, I think, to say, look, these are just different guns. There's nothing that says you are going to have a better or worse time as a result of being a higher or lower rank.
So let's talk about the timeline of the game, the sort of setting of the game, these CIA deniable ops missions that you're taking part in. How has that influenced the maps that we're fighting in and the equipment that we use?
Yeah. So hopefully we'll get into the user interface side of this in a minute, but it had actually a massive influence on the game design as a whole. So when we're doing research and pre-production, as we often do, we're looking through sort of what the kinds of special operatives would do and use in those time periods, and when they were going and be in places they weren't supposed to be, and they would use highly modified enemy weaponry. They would take their personal weapons, their personal firearms that they've bought or had shipped to them into battle, and those things had a big influence on the gun customization system that's available in Call of Duty Black Ops. And it's one of the reasons why we have so many camo patterns that you can unlock and purchase, because guys would just spray paint their guns. They're like, F it, I need this, I need the gun to be this color. You didn't have when you're a special operations soldier, you don't have the military breathing down your back about doing bad things to your gun. You just do whatever you need to do. And that was an influence for the game design in a really significant fashion.
And I assume that when you drop your gun and somebody else comes and picks it up, it's still visible there for the other players?
Absolutely. So, it's really fun to take somebody's gun, his highly customized gun, right? His gun with his own camo, his own clan tag, his own reflex sight, with his own aiming reticle color, with his own aiming reticle design, and then kill him with it, and then have him see that in the kill cam.
In the kill cam.
Yeah.
So we've got a few seconds until the next match. Let's talk about the equipment screen, the creator class screen that we're seeing here.
Yeah, John's in the perk 2, and he's browsing through the perks. So he's unlocked all the perks now. He's level 5, so he's ranked up. And what he can do is look at any perk category that he wants, and then you can see that any perk is available for purchase. So you don't unlock perks by level anymore. You unlock every one of them, with the exception of the pro versions. And as long as you have enough money, you can actually purchase that. So John's got a little over 1,000 CP, so he can't afford any more perks right now.
So CP, we should let's spend a little time talking about that. How did that idea originate? I imagine that there's probably a lot of back and forth whether that was too big of a risk to take with the multiplayer system.
We knew that we were the concept of the Call of Duty points, or just simply CP, or the currency. This came up probably in day 2 of pre-production, right? We knew pretty early on that this is a direction that we wanted to go, and we had done a lot of paper prototyping to see if it made sense to us. But yeah, of course, when you go from a non-economy game to an economy game, it's a big deal to people, right? Yeah. When you go to an unlock game to an economy game. But ultimately, we've thought that after a couple of games of doing the unlock mechanism, it was really time to kind of infuse a different take on that system, right?
Right.
So so for us, what we really were interested in is being able for players to have more control over the experience. than they could get if we were spoon feeding them, right? So you got to find the right balance of how far to take that, right? So in things like perks and kill streaks, those are still features that unlock, and then you purchase the one that you want.
Right.
But things like weapons, those still unlock, and then you decide if you want to buy them. But if you buy them, then you unlock almost everything for that weapon. You can go buy the attachments for it right away. That takes out a little bit of the grind that happens, trying to grind for your attachments.
Right.
And it's just a different take, right? That's a fun system too. It's a matter of trying to evolve that concept a bit and have Treyarch put their mark on a way of doing that, and that's really what that was about for us.
Let's take a look at the. Actually, we're looking at that right now. So the idea of the class system, you're actually wearing different outfits, and it affects your attributes in the game.
Yeah. So for every Call of Duty game to date, the way that your character principally looks had been determined based on what gun you were holding. Right, which is not a bad system at all. But we had this idea for giving players more control over their experience, and some people really care about how they look, you know? So it started from this, how are we going to give people the ability to control what they look, which by itself was interesting, but not as good enough as associating it with the gameplay mechanic. So we went through a couple of ideas and finally settled on this concept that these perk 1, right? The base perk, the base gameplay defining attribute of a player is perk 1. And if we make those perks have a visualization and change the character, then you can really start to see what that guy is likely to be doing inside the game. If you've got Ghost and you're wearing lots of ghillie or camouflage, you'll have an idea what that guy's playstyle is, so you can figure out by looking at him how to engage that player, and that's the start of something really big, I think.
Cool.
John's looking at the contracts menu right now, which is one of the many things you can do inside of a lobby in between games. And there's 3 types of contracts, right? The mercenary contracts, the operations contracts, and the specialist contracts. And then John can dig through here on the specialist contracts. We like to refer to specialist contracts as contracts for specialized players. Bag of heads, get 3 headshots with submachine guns, right? So there's various kind of clever, unique, very specialized players, like guys who like to go after headshots and that's their thing. They'll want to pick up a contract so they can get a little extra CP for it along the way, right? So we think the contracts is a nice way to engage with what traditionally had been the challenges system, where those challenges, of course, still exist, but they're passive. They just exist. You unlock them, you get them.
Right.
That's the surprise, right? Yay, okay, I got the challenge. That's cool. But contracts let people actually put a little of their own investment in because you have to pay for them.
Oh, okay.
Right? And then once you pay for them, you could, if you accomplish the contract within the time frame, then you'll get paid back even more. So that's that level of interaction between systems level design and users that we think is really engaging and fun for players. Yeah, so John's in a Perk Pro menu right now, and Perk Pros you still have to complete challenge groups for, so rather than just one challenge, you have to actually complete 3 challenges to even unlock the Pro version, and then once you've unlocked it, you still have to purchase it. So the Pro versions are Pro, right? That's all business. So there's an example of where those 2 systems come together. I mean, not only do you have to do a challenge, you have to do 3 challenges. So, the way that the game is configured and set up, it's, most things are feature unlocks, but some things are challenge unlocks, right? So whatever made the most sense for what the award was for doing it. So that's what the motivation there was, right? Marathon 26 miles and, First Blood, right? This is a gameplay thing. So what we're trying to say is, hey, look, guys who have marathon, they're going to be the guys who run in and engage first,
right,
and have those first engagements. So you should give them something to do that would a marathon type user would using, and First Blood is one of those things, right? And then finally on the captures front, hey, look, if you're a marathon guy, then you're often a CTF player, so you need to capture flags. So I'm really excited about the Pro versions and what they bring and the challenges that you need to do to get them. I mean, they're legit challenges. You have to do these things, and but you're not going to unlock the Pro version if you don't go play CTF and cap flags. That's how it's going to be.
All right, so we've started a match here on a map called Nuketown, right?
That's right. This is Nuketown, and it is perhaps the smallest map that we have in the multiplayer side of things, and it features a double rainbow.
And it's quite a departure from Havana. This looks like a nice little slice of Americana right here. In fact, you've got the Treyarch school bus, it looks like.
You know, this map was influenced by those sort of sets that they would build in the desert to basically nuke as a test.
Oh, okay.
So, if you've ever seen any of the last Indiana Jones movie, for example, they have that kind of town in there, and if you've ever watched